Time for Unit 8, Evolution Review. So we're going to scroll on down to our multiple choice questions. And here we are, number 1. Which frog species would be most likely to interbreed? So when looking at the graph, we're looking at their mating activity. So basically their mating seasons. And so in order for them to mate, these mating seasons have to overlap. So if you look at these answers, we got the peeper and the leopard. So here's the peeper and here's the leopard. And holy cow, they overlap a lot. They might actually interbreed. But just to be sure there's not a better one, let's look at the wood and the peckerel. So here's the wood and here's the peckerel. And they do overlap this tiny little bit right there. So they are unlikely to breed together. Bullfrog and green frog. So here's bullfrog and green frog. They too overlap a little bit. So not super likely to breed together. And tree and pickerel. So here's the tree frog and here's the pickerel. And they really don't overlap much at all. So A would be the ones that would most likely interbreed. A biology student collected pine needles from 4 different species of trees. She then made diagrams showing the number and actual length of the needles in the bundle and the common and scientific names of each species. Use your diagram above to help you answer the following question. These 4 different pine trees are not classified in the same. Well, if you look at them, they're all in their scientific names, and hopefully you remember scientific name is genus and species. They're all in the same genus, but they're different species. Otherwise, they would be the same thing. So the thing they're not in is going to be C, species. If they're in the same genus, they're in the same levels up the whole way up, okay? Wildcats such as cheetahs, lions, and tigers experience decreased genetic diversity as their populations decline and become fragmented due to habitat destruction. Decreased genetic diversity leads to populations with, all right, if you have less genetic diversity, and we've talked about this class several times, what it does is make it so a disease can come in and wipe you right out. So the answer is B, decreased disease resistance. Number 4, according to the chart, insects are most closely related to. So we got to find the insects. Which ones are most closely related? So we got springtails and bristletails. Here's springtails. Here's bristletails. So these guys, the order to be most closely related is all the way down here at the bottom. Springtails and proterns. Oh, look at, they come together right there. They're fairly close. Dragonflies and proterns. So here's dragonflies and proterns. Again, you got to go all the way down to the bottom for them to come together. Bristletails and mayflies. So bristletails, I found them a minute ago. Where are they? Over here, and mayflies are over there. Their common ancestor is right here, which isn't too bad, but not nearly as close as the springtails and proterns. So your answer should have been B. 5. Scientists found the fossilized remains of a canine's jaw and leg. What information can scientists use to place the fossils in the ancestral line? The rest of the skeleton? Well, you may not even find the rest of the skeleton to begin with. You don't even necessarily need it. The age of the fossils. If we found the age of the fossils, would we know where they go in the line? The continent where they were found may be helpful, but that's one of our weakest evidences for evolution. And population trends, definitely not. So the one thing we could definitely do is find the age of the fossils through relative dating or radioactive dating. Number 6, all the organisms shown to the right belong to phylum Chordata. The structural similarity in these organisms suggests that. So they're all in phylum Chordata. So they all, if you can tell by the picture, all have a humerus. They also all have a backbone. And so because of this structural similarity, does it suggest that the humerus is attached to the skeleton by immovable joints? No, we don't know that. How about the humerus is the same size in all chordates? Well, if you look at the picture, are they the same size? No. Only animals that walk on 4 legs need a humerus. Well, a pigeon doesn't walk on 4 legs, neither does a bat, and they have one. So perhaps it is D, that chordates have a common ancestor because they all share that characteristic, which tells us the common ancestor also probably shared that characteristic. Number 7, most organisms are known by their common name and their scientific names. And their scientific names must include, there we're back to genus and species, B. Here's like one of our experiments. People long ago believed maggots came from meat. In the late 1600s, Francisco Redi made the hypothesis that maggots came from flies rather than from meat. Which of these experiments would be used to test Redi's hypothesis? So these aren't exactly the same as Redi's, but you could use which one makes sense. So if we look at A, both of them are open and one has meat and one does not. Was it about the presence of meat or not, or about something else? All right, if we look at B, we have presence of meat, meat not there, one's covered, one's not covered. In that case, you have too many variables. That's actually a terrible experiment. You don't know which one's causing the effect. All right, if you look at C, they both have meat, but one's open and one's not. And then if you look at D, they're exactly the same. So there is no variable there. So we're between A and C, and which one really makes sense about the flies if the maggots came from them? Well, in order to track the flies, they have to both have meat. That has to be a constant. So C is the one where you have a cover and then you have no cover. And then, of course, Francisco Redi had the one with the cheesecloth. Number 9, the Baltimore Oriole's scientific name is Ictera scalbula. What taxonomic levels does the scientific name include? So we've answered this a couple times already. It is a genus and species. So number 10, the Baltimore Oriole's scientific name, Ictera scalbula. Which bird is most closely related? Well, this one's tricky. If you're closely related, do you have the same genus or the same species? If you have the same species name, like letter C, then you would literally be the same species, except you're in different genuses, which couldn't happen if you were the same species. You would have the same scientific name. So instead, same genus. So the answer should be B. Number 11, which structures are considered analogous? So remember, analogous is the opposite of homologous. Homologous is same structure, even if they're used differently. Analogous is they're used the same way, but their structure is different. So 2 antennae on 2 different insects, that's the same thing. Bones in a bat wing and bones in a human hand, actually, those are homologous. The wings of a bat and the wings of a butterfly. Now, those are used for the same thing, but structurally very different because butterflies do not have bones. So the answer is C. 12, to classify organisms, a biologist in the field would first use which of the following? So if you're in the field and you're looking at these critters and you want to classify them, are you going to use their ecological niche, which is their role in their community? Maybe. Dietary habits? How about their physical appearance, what they look like, or how they reproduce? You might not even see them reproduce. So they're usually what we use is their body structure or morphology, which is their physical appearance. Of course, that's not our best evidence. DNA is the best evidence, but when you're out in the field, you can't do DNA kind of stuff right there in the field. 13, 2 organisms have similar embryonic development. This provides evidence that, so all these embryos, we did this in class, they're all the same. They look very similar. They all have similar traits. What does that tell us? It tells us that they had a common ancestor that probably also shared those traits. 14, what is not exhibited during early embryonic development? Well, we all had a tail, we all had gills, and we all had a notochord, but we didn't get fine hair early in development. Not everything does. We as humans do later on, but not everything gets hair. 15, the structure in the diagram to right are called, well, these are the same structure, 1 bone, 2 bone blobbies, phalanges. On both of them, they are the same. They're homologous. 16, modern classification systems are based on fossil records and C, comparison of DNA. Not your diet, not even your habitat, certainly not ecological factors like weather and stuff like that, no. All right, so DNA is what we use. 17, which of the following best supports the idea that organisms have a common ancestor? Their fossils were found in the same place. Just because your fossils were found in the same place doesn't mean you're related. Similar respiration methods, well, a lot of organisms have the same respiration methods. Similar locomotion, not necessarily, because we have birds that fly and birds that don't. Many of their genes are the same. Ding, ding, ding. Definitely that one, okay? 18, according to the cladogram, which two species are least likely to be related? So if they're least likely to be related, they had to be separated for a very long time. So who do we have? We have club mosses and spike mosses. So we have to go back to here for their common ancestor. Quillworts and spike mosses, they're actually really recent in time. They're closely related. Club mosses and ferns. Whoa, you got to go all the way back there. That's our winner, right? Can't go any lower than that. So you should have C. According to the cladogram, which two species are more closely related? So we got ferns and flowering plants. Oh, very closely related. Quillworts and flowering plants. Nope, got to go all the way back there. Club mosses and ferns. Nope, we already said in the previous question they were the least likely to be related. Or club moss and flowering plants. Nope, still all the way further back. So ferns and flowering plants have the win. All right, number 20, what would be the most recent and modern technology used to determine relationships between organisms? That would be B, DNA comparison. All right, DNA is our best evidence. All righty, guys, there you go. Good luck.